Behind the Shades.
In 2015, I get into another relationship, and I chose a woman, and I think she chose me because her ex-husband was an alcoholic. And then when she heard that I was in sobriety, she figured she would be safe. So she chose me for the wrong reason, and I took her for the wrong reason. And that didn't last more than a year. And that at the end of a year, we basically walked away from each other because it was just going nowhere. And in typical fashion, I put myself right back out there on a dating app, and I found another woman and jumped right into that relationship. And that too just spiraled out of control. That didn't last more than 18 months. Fell apart. And so at this point, I'm still making the same mistakes. I have a phrase in my podcast. The phrase "been there, done that." Well, I'm been there, still doing that. I'm still doing the same mistakes, the same patterns of choosing wrong women or jumping into relationships too quickly without taking a look at what's going on inside of me and why. And so this time I'm sober, so I can't blame it on the alcohol this time, right? I can't blame it on my disease of addiction. So that brings us to the relationship that really made me wake up. And I met this woman on a dating app, I'm going to say 3 years ago now. And oh my God, was she beautiful and so unlike any of the other 15, 20 women in my life. She was from another country. She emigrated here 25 years ago. Barely spoke English when didn't speak English when she got here. And she somehow managed to learn English and put a business together and got married and became successful. But what happened in her life is her husband cheated on her. So she ended up divorcing him and putting herself out there. And that was the first red flag that I missed, because she hadn't been out of that relationship for maybe 3 to 6 months before she started dating again. If you're married for 22 years and you leave a relationship, there has to be a buffer period of healing. And this woman took no time to heal. So she did what I did. She just jumped into another relationship thinking that the next man will come along and solve her problems and rescue her. We call it the Superman syndrome. I swooped in. I was the white in the shining armor on the white horse, swooping in, and I'm going to save you. And she would. I'm sitting in my living room, and behind me is the couch. She would sit on my couch for weekends. She would come down and tell me about all the trauma in her life from when she was a child and her teenage years, and how horrible it was when she came here. She came here with $5 in her pocket, and her son was 10 years old. Anyway, so the relationship started with trauma bonding. I don't know if you know that term, and then love bombing. And myself and many men, when we hear the stories of a woman that went through trauma and we're empathetic, I'll speak in the I, but I'm sure a lot of men can identify with this. We want to go sweep them off their feet and rescue them and say, I'm not like that husband of yours. I'm a good man, and I'm gonna rescue you and take care of you. So there was that's where the love bombing comes in. And we quickly connected, and but this is where I chose poorly. This woman had ulterior motives. As I said, she just didn't properly heal from the 22-year marriage. And there's another term that doing this podcast, I've learned many cliches and phrases, and one thing is called hurt people hurt. I'm sorry, hurt people hurt people. And she was a person that was hurting because of her trauma from her childhood all the way up into her adulthood. Being cheated on in a relationship, in a marriage of 22 years, if you think you're life mates and soulmates, and then 22 years in, your husband is out having an affair, but that can be pretty traumatic to a woman, or and any gender, whatever kind of a relationship, even the LGBTQ community. It's horrible to have somebody that you think is loyal to you. But then she turns around and does it to me. We had 6 months of the honeymoon period. Everything seemed beautiful and happy, and we were making plans to move to Florida. But she, I think, unbeknownst to me, we didn't talk about this. I think she, at 6 months, we did fall in love, but I think at 6 months, she figured out that she really wanted to see what else was out there. She went from the husband right to me. And she even, there was a time that she took a trip to Florida and she didn't let me go with her. And by the way, one of the things she told me in the early days of our relationship, that we had to keep it a secret. And I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't post pictures on Facebook. I couldn't tell anybody. We couldn't be seen together in public. And there were so many red flags that I just ignored them. By the way, she was a Miss Universe runner-up in the country she came from back in somewhere in the 90s. So that's just to give you an idea of the caliber of beauty she was. She was extraordinarily beautiful, and which is a problem for men, right? You have a beautiful woman sitting in front of you, and I thought I hit the lottery. I'm like, wow, Miss Universe pageant. Who gets that? Who gets that chance?